let's see. But let's go back to the good ones. Have you ever actually read any really, really good ones? Like, we're talking proper chilling ones.
Nope.
Right. Well, if you've heard me shuffling my stuff around on the floor, I've actually brought a few examples, but we're not reading them online, but I'll give you a quick one. Like, for example, one of my absolute favourites that is genuinely quite creepy, and yes, it's a lost episode, but this was written before lost episodes became like a trope, pretty much, is Candle Cove. Again, I'll put all links in to the stories online on this video, but Candle Cove is basically a short, sweet, but it tells the story of how a bunch of users got together online and basically start remembering this old TV show they used to watch in the 70s. But the more they dig into it, the more terrifying it actually becomes. And it all builds up to the final paragraph that it knocks you sideways. Like, the first time I read this, my stomach dropped. Like, I was just like, whoa. Like, that just it knocks you sideways. I'm not kidding.
Sounds pretty effective, I guess.
And by the way, there's no blood, there's no violence, there's no gore, there's none of that. It's just a creepy idea written incredibly well. That's all you need.
I'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah, I've got it here, and let's see, there's other ones like this one that people might have heard of, the Russian sleep experiment. Now, again, there is a bit of blood and a bit of gore, but it's written in such a way that's believable. Not lengthy, it's only like 6 pages long, but it tells the story of how in the 40s, just during World War II, the Russians were experimenting with a gas that was designed to keep you awake for 15 days straight. So to do this, they got themselves a bunch of political prisoners together, deemed enemy of the state, and basically stuck them inside of a chamber filled with nothing but the gas. And it goes into a very, very creepy and quite frankly disgusting ending that makes you really think quite heavily about yourself in that sense. Yeah, we all enjoy a fright. You know, like we enjoy getting a bit spooked out every so often.
Mm-hmm.
But it just depends how you want to proceed with that. I mean, you've watched all Saw films, haven't you?
Apart from Jigsaw, but I do need to see that.
Well, what I'm saying is that, in a way, it's kind of like, you can enjoy that kind of shit, and I can't. But I would rather read stuff read or see something that's a lot slower and a lot more subtle than that, in a sense, really. Because we both have our limits, is what I'm saying, and it's kind of like, we would rather take our chance with that, and we know what scares us, rather than have something that is designed to be it's kind of stupid to try and force that down your neck in a way. I'm trying to basically get at the creepypastas are designed to be scary, but it really does depend how close you want to get to it, is what I mean. Whether you're reading or writing it, really. I mean, if I were to say to you, which ones would you read? Would you go... would you try something that's overly graphically violent, or would you rather have something that builds up the atmosphere in a way?
I definitely think that atmosphere building is important. I don't think I'd want to read an overly long creepypasta though, because in my experience with I've just not found that many good ones.
Well, I can link you a few, because there are some really, really effective ones out there. Like, let's see. Well, I've just said the Russian sleep experiment. That is pretty terrifying, and it's written in such a way that it feels like it could have happened, right? The writing style is written very coldly and very, like, distant, and it takes place during a time where this kind of stuff might have actually happened in a way. I don't know, it just depends what your limits are. Like, there's some really frightening ones, there's some really disgusting ones, but it really comes down to preference and taste, really, which a lot of these bad ones don't give a shit about. Like, as I mentioned earlier, Clockwork, that one is frankly tasteless. It's horribly tasteless, horribly violent for the sake of it. There's no actual point to it whatsoever. All it's doing is basically ripping off Jeff the Killer. And I wouldn't recommend that story, but if you want to try it, don't expect subtlety. Don't expect anything in good taste. It's the most disgusting thing I've ever read in any way, shape and form. And I'll even say this, right? I know I might get a few hate messages for this, but if you like that story and think it's really good, you're a scumbag. Because it fucking is the most horrible thing imaginable.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Not
really sure I'd describe as scumbags. Maybe people with poor taste in stories.
Well, pretty much. I mean, I'm trying to get into it because well, not into that, but I'm saying into how to explain more of this. It's just, we've had tropes, right? We've got a lot of tropes. Creepypastas really are an interesting thing, whether they be good or bad. They kind of are there to kind of frighten you. Like, they really are. Like, there's some out there that are overly long, incredibly descriptive, but I'd say the best ones are usually only a few pages long. They don't have to be that long in order to really get to you in that sense. So I would say, give them a read. Look up the Creepypasta wiki. Give them a read. See what you think. But I would recommend a few. Like, for example, Ben Drowned again. Like, Ben Drowned is fantastic, albeit a bit overrated. There's Candle Cove, which is fucking incredible. And I'm trying to think of one more. A good one, The Showers. Yeah, The Showers is another really fun. It's a bit of a long one again, but it gives you one of the greatest characters in all of Creepypastas, pretty much. But I'm not going to spoil who it is, but gives you a really well executed idea, a very detailed one, and one that was actually thought out, believe it or not. But yeah, we'll read more of them online as well, because I want to read more of these really shit ones, pretty much, because I've got a few lined up that I just need to... If anything, sorry for my droning on quite a lot about them, but... leave it in the comments if you've got any in mind that you wouldn't mind us actually having a read and having a giggle at.
Send us suggestions for drinking games as well.
Oh, yeah.
I need to take revenge on Jake.
And no, I am not doing Sonic EXE Round 2. That will fucking kill us. I'm not fucking lying. That is going to kill us, that.
Hey, I survived your Jeff the Killer drinking game.
Well, you wrote that one. Oh, wait, no, you didn't. Oh,
About to say!
I was going to say, you weren't... Oh, wait, it wasn't Jeff the Killer, it was Jake the Killer.
Yeah, I was going to say I survived your drinking game the first time around. I don't survive it in Jake the Killer.
Yeah, but...
You bastard.
Yeah. But, as I said, right, if you are curious to try a lot of them, give them a try. Take them with a pinch of salt, because who knows?
Or maybe the entire mine.
The entire mine, but... And I wouldn't say... I'm not a horror fan, but these get you in that way that kind of makes you really think. And in a way, in that more terrifying than all the blood and gore and violence there is out there.
Oh, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, you've got all the gore on the screen or on words that you're reading, and it's just like, yeah, okay, they're bleeding to death. And stuff like that. And then, but when you're being made to think about creepy stuff, especially when they don't give you all of the information.
Well, I'll put it this way. One more very quick one. What makes a creepypasta last is really A, its effectiveness, B, how it's written, and C, the possible character. Like, I'm going to admit, right, fair enough, Jeff the Killer has lasted this long. It's a shit story, but the character has somehow managed to stay relevant, right? But you've probably heard of him. Other characters, such as Slender Man. Yeah, Slender Man is actually... Well, I wouldn't say he's a creepypasta, but he's an urban legend, and he's only got famous through it.
I was to say, who hasn't heard of Slender Man at this point?
The only problem that I find with Slender Man and Jeff the Killer... Well, not even Jeff the Killer, but just Slender Man, is, from what I've heard, he's too popular. And true horror is what you don't see, really. Wouldn't you agree that what you don't see is actually scarier than what you do?
Yeah, I would say so.
But
it's like with the old saying, better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Exactly. And that's the problem with Slenderman is he's too popular. From what I've heard, he's very overrated nowadays because people wouldn't stop exposing him, and now he's more of a pop culture icon than he is a scare factor.
Yeah, but it's just like that's like everybody knows Slender Man now, and pretty much everybody who follows Slender Man knows his lore, knows how he gets you, whether or not he's got any weaknesses. Yeah, that just like really dilutes it. It's like you're talking about Saw earlier.
Yeah.
Going through the first Saw film.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's these two guys trapped in a bathroom. Yeah, then you get Adam thinking that Lawrence might be the Jigsaw killer, in spite of the fact that they're both chained up in this bathroom.
Yeah.
People thinking, nah, he can't be the. How can he be the killer if he's like chained up in the bathroom?
Yeah.
And it goes on to look at somebody who is set up to be the Jigsaw killer. When they run out of time, he goes over to the bathroom to kill Lawrence. In spite of the fact that the cassette tape said that if he didn't get out in time, then his family would die and he would leave Lawrence in the bathroom to rot. Although actually it doesn't say whether he would be left in there dead or alive. But yeah, the guy you think is the Jigsaw killer goes into the bathroom, gets the crap beaten out of him, and he's killed. When Adam's looking for a key to get himself out of the chains, what he does find on this killer is a tape player. As he plays that, and it's like, oh shit, this guy's not the killer. This guy is being forced to play a game by the killer. Then the person who is lying dead in the middle of the bathroom since the start of the film, he's not actually dead. He's just been injected with something to relax his muscles, but that's wearing enough at that point. He stands up, is the Jigsaw killer. It's like, what? Oh, holy shit. We thought the killer was in the bathroom the whole time. Then we were like, no, he wasn't. It's this guy. And what the fuck? No, it is. The killer was in the bathroom the whole time. How did he set all of this shit up? How did he stay in that position? I mean, yeah, things like that are explained in later films, but yeah, it is more about what you don't know, because it's like, how did this guy set all of this up? How did he lie down there for so long? How has he got things played out so that you have this other guy look like he's the one doing the killing on his own? Of just what else is this guy capable?
So you would agree that it's more about what you don't know, but would you watch something knowing all of this, or would you rather not know it, is what I'm saying? Like, for example, let's say you had no clue that, well, obviously you had no clue that the guy on the floor was the Jigsaw killer, but more, imagine not knowing any of that. Imagine if that tape recorder wasn't there. Imagine, just leave it to your imagination to try and imagine how this could all work. I mean, what is the difference between that or a plot hole, is what I'm saying. It's kind of like, how much info do you give to somebody without revealing the whole thing? That's a good question.
I think without Adam, if Adam didn't find the tape player on Zep, then I think that would kind of lead to a plot hole. It's like, if I'm gonna have these things explained to me, I'd rather they be explained to me as the film goes on.
Yeah.
Just so you know, people, this is why we dislike spoilers.
It's just that when I think of that, it's like, when you think on that, that's one other thing that very quickly, again, about, it's not even just creepypastas, but it's horror in general, is that it's kind of like, you get your varying degrees where it's that they'll give you everything in a masterful kind of way, where they only give you the slightest hint of something, but your suspension of disbelief kicks in that you can fill in the blanks yourself. Whereas if you're given too much, it kind of spoils everything, and if you're given too little, it leads to a plot hole. It's like, again, with creepypastas, I've read quite a number of where info is key. Your information is key. You let your imagination fill in all the gaps, and it's like, For example, a bad one is Sonic EXE, right? Because JC the Hyena, again, he doesn't give a shit about horror. It's more that he's just trying to build, well, he's forcibly trying to build a lore. Like, for example, in Sonic EXE, he explains everything in graphic detail and stupidity and all this, that, and the other. In the sequel, he again explains all the crappy details, but he's trying to fill in the blanks left by his first idiotic story. And then he'll build it even more to try and make it sound like that Sonic EXE is the most evil thing imaginable. But he goes even further and basically says, oh, there's a massive cult that worships him, and there's 7 guardians that look out over the underworld, and blah, blah, blah. It all falls flat on its face. And that's why nobody really takes him seriously as a horror writer, because he can't write horror.
I'm just going to have to stop your explanation there, because I am just feeling really bored already. It really is a case of show, don't tell.
Yeah.
Like, going through all of that, it's like, what is the reader supposed to do with that?
Well, it is a strange thing that, writing and creativity in general. It's like, as I said, I'm trying to become like more of a creative writer myself, and I'm always trying to figure. It's like, for example, I wrote this one story about 4 years ago, let's say, and I think it was last year, I decided I'm going to have a look into it, because I thought, what's my old writing like? So I had a read of my old stuff. I'm like, Jesus Christ almighty, I've never proofread or anything. So I went through it, proofread all the spelling errors, there were quite a number. I expanded on various points and built it up a little bit more and took away other unnecessary details and that. And now I've got a 11-page fan fiction. But
it was always good to look back on your work.
Yeah, well, it's the old stuff is what I'm saying. It's like, you can only get better with time. It's kind of like, think about it, get back to it, think how you can twist it or turn it or whatever. And then, obviously, proofread your stuff, but also have someone read it through. Would you read stories that involve mental illness? Like, if I presented you with a creepypasta or whatever that had mental illness in it, would you be offended by that, or would you give it a try?
Well, I don't really think that it would do well to just be offended before I've even read it, because what I'd be thinking is, well, what's the purpose of the mental illness? How is it portrayed within the story? There's I played through Doki Doki Literature Club recently, and that game definitely takes a realistic and quite frightening approach with mental illness.
Yeah.
And in that case, it was a real eye-opener. If somebody is just throwing in a mental illness for the sake of it, or just as like a crutch to try and make their character seem darker and edgier, I don't know, I think it'd feel like they'd just be using the illness as a scapegoat, and I think it really would be an insult to people who genuinely do suffer from these disorders.
Well, that's what I was going to get at, is that again with bad creepypastas, is they always like to try and shoehorn violence, gore, mental illness, or any other dark themes into it to try and make it sound grittier. But a lot of the time it fails. But in some respects, it works dramatically. Like, for example, I watch a lot of YouTubers who work with specialise in creepypastas. Like, there's Bad Creepypasta by Michael Leroy, who was also the inspiration for the Sonic EXE drinking game. Fucking bastard! Nah, I'm joking. And there's also another guy called Hudo Hoodlum's Revenge, who reads these out, points out all the flaws, but also offers constructive criticism on a lot of things. Anyway, and he made this one video called Barbie.avi Explained, which I've got right here, Barbie.avi. The thing with this story is, I don't get it. Like, I really don't get it, because I've read it, and it sounds like a lot of random elements have basically just been pieced and placed here and there. And it is genuinely creepy, but it has this kind of thing where it's like, what does this mean? What does that mean? And all that. It kind of makes sense in a way, because my point being on mental illness is, right, the story is, a guy finds an old computer outside his house, right? Brings it in. I don't know why, but he brings it in to try it out. Anyway, on there, he ends up finding a video of what looks like to be a woman being interviewed, but because of the horrible audio quality, he can't make it out. All he's got is basically her facial expressions. And for nearly an hour, she's being interviewed, but as it's going on, she's getting more and more flustered and going red and to the point where she starts crying. And it gets to the point where she's so distraught, take a word out. Anyway, and then it just ends. And 2 minutes later, there's another small video of someone walking along a pair of train tracks. And the author recognises these train tracks as these near his house. So one day he goes and explores, and he comes across an abandoned house. He goes in, and all the furniture in there looks too new to be in an abandoned house. And all the mess has been taken away. All dust has been wiped off and all this, that and the other. And he's like, what the bloody hell's going on here? He goes into the bathroom and finds a wet tarp, you know, and those plastic sheets and whatnot in the shower. And he's like, what the bloody hell? Anyway, until he comes across the only locked door in that entire house. And he thinks it leads to the basement. And as he's exploring the bedroom, he hears this loud moan, like a really loud moan. And he gets frightened, jumps out the window and leaves. And he thinks to himself, what could have that moan been? Maybe a leaking water pipe or something. And then he thinks, hold on, how is there water running inside an abandoned house? And then that's it. But in this explain video, Hudo explains that this woman could be suffering from a disorder. And it's a real disorder, bear in mind, that where she doesn't like parts of her body. I forget what it's called, but it's a BIID, I think it's called. And it's basically someone is genuinely unhappy with parts of their body. But it's actually a real thing where you end up having your arm taken off or something. I forget how it goes. But in this video, it turns out the woman being interviewed hasn't got an arm. And I think to myself, right, it makes sense now. Why is this called Barbie.avi? You know what I mean? Like, she could be that she isn't happy with her body and she wants to be like a supermodel or something and she's being interviewed by very psychiatric people. I don't know. That's the thing. So I didn't get it at first, and I think to myself, if that's the case, it's masterful. Because it adds all this shit in, but you think to yourself, what the hell could all this mean? And knowing that, you start to think your own conclusions around it. So it could be they rented this place out from someone to perform the surgery because nobody else would do it. I don't know. I'm just throwing suggestions out there. But it is a good story. It's very short, but when you read it, it doesn't really make any sense. I'll put it that way. You've really got to think this one through. Yeah. If that is the case, then I'd say the author of that story, bravo. You know what I mean? It's freaking insane, to say the least.
It sounds it.
It is insane, but it really leaves you to think about these kind of things. And then you get other bullshit like Clockwork again that throws mental illness in there just for the lols, pretty much. Let's call it there then, shall we? I mean, my real thing about the whole thing is, when it comes down to it, whether it be creepypastas, books, or anything in general, if you are going to add dark and weird themes into any story, treat them with respect. That's another little topic I like to throw out. And sorry for nearly talking your ear off all this hour, Deej. It's just, I don't know, I've been reading a lot of weird stuff lately. Thoughts on this? Or
well, this is going to sound really shitty of me, but I actually don't know.
Well, would you say that if you were to start reading good or bad creepypastas, would they in any way help your English? Or you think...
I doubt it.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. Would they teach you how not to write?
I already know how not to write.
But what I'm saying, though, is it's kind of like... I kind of look at them as like a stepping stone on how to help improve your your overall work in a way. But anyway, well, thank you for listening to my rambling. And anyway, right. So I guess it's a goodbye from me then.
And from me and all, I'm a bit tired. I'm going to have to wake up if we're going to pub.
You'll have to wake up as well as don't go to sleep. Oh wait, he always says go to sleep, doesn't he? Go to sleep. Go to Kip.
Oh, get back to your fucking whippets.
Get back to me fucking whippets as well as Leo. But anyway.
That's enough of that.
Alright, well, see you in a bit, everyone.
In a bit, folks.